What do you think about our bus? So our bus is basically a rolling billboard for our union. It is for our union and by our union. You see the graphics? Those graphics were designed by our new media department. And Connie Mabin is the director, Scott Weaver is the assistant director, they're here. The pictures of members, and those are actual steelworker members, were taken by our communications department. And Jess Cam, who's our director of our communications department, Martin is here, and so is RJ. And the wrap for this bus. So this is a coach bus. It's just a normal coach bus. And it was wrapped by steelworkers in Pennsylvania at a company called Star Graphics. So this bus, from really the rooter to the tutor, as we would say, is steelworkers. So please give all of them an applause because they did such a great job. I also want to thank our bus driver, Ron, who is in there staying cool. He's smart, not like the rest of us. He's a teamster, but I think by the end he'll be a steelworker, so give it up for Ron. So why are we here today? Why did our union start this We Supply America campaign? If the first thing you did this morning was check your phone, raise your hand. All right. If you turned on the lights, some of y'all didn't turn on the lights? If you made coffee, all right. If you worked third shift and came here, I see some of you guys in, no? All right. If you dropped your kid off at camp or school, all right. Well, if you checked your phone, you used your home Wi-Fi and broadband connection. That's infrastructure. If you turned on your lights, you pulled power from the electric grid. That's infrastructure. When you took a shower or made coffee, you are using our water infrastructure. And if you work at Goodyear or Nestle or Huntington Ingalls, you need roads, waterways, and ports to bring the raw materials to your facilities in order to make the tires, food products, and ships that you all produce at your facilities. This is all infrastructure. When you drove on the roads, overpasses, and maybe a bridge, more infrastructure. And this is a slightly different one that I'm going to mention. If you did drop your kid or your grandkid off at camp or school, that's infrastructure too, but that's the social infrastructure. That's the type of infrastructure that allows us to do what we do every single day, to be able to go to work and do the things that we need to do to provide for our families. So infrastructure impacts everything that we do every day, whether it's the simple activities that you do with your families or how your facilities are powered or how they receive their raw materials. But these systems are failing. Across the country, they're failing. And there's this organization called the American Society of Civil Engineers, and every few years they do this report card that updates us on how our infrastructure is doing. What grade do you think they gave us this year? Just yell it out. What grade? Actually, did you read the report, William? C minus, that is correct, C. And that's not an acceptable grade. We invest far less than any other civilized nation on infrastructure. We're like 13th on the list. So we need to do better, we need to do more. And oftentimes when the infrastructure conversation happens and we think about infrastructure, we only think about the people who are building the systems. But here in Danville and across this country, steelworker members are making the steel and the glass and the rubber and the cement and the chemicals and other materials that really help make up the backbone of our critical infrastructure systems, or we provide the services to support these systems. So this is why we're here today. And this is really why our union started this We Supply America campaign. We want to remind policymakers about what we do, the products that we make, the services that we provide, but really it's a reminder to all of you about where you fit in the infrastructure system. All of the systems across this country that help this country move, you all play a role. And here, you know, this is not a tire from this facility. This is from Akron. It's a sports tire. But here at this facility, they make bus and truck tires and aviation tires. That is all transportation infrastructure. That's huge. That is a message that we need to take not just here in North Carolina and Virginia, but really back to Washington. we want policymakers to make those connections to steelworker jobs and infrastructure. So throughout this program, I'm going to be asking you, now that I've told you why we did this, who supplies America? And when I say, who supplies America, I want you to say, we supply America. Oh my goodness, this is so disappointing. Didn't I tell you about Indiana and Ohio and West Virginia and the energy? Who supplies America?
We supply America.
Who supplies America?
We supply America.
That's much better. I'm very pleased. Thank you. And so before I turn it over to our first speaker, I just want to say that we couldn't have imagined that the timing for this week of action and bus tour would be so perfect. The Senate just passed a $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill, and they sent it to the House. That's physical infrastructure. So that's our roads and our bridges. They're also working on a $3.5 trillion infrastructure package, which is that human infrastructure that I talked about. It's this type of infrastructure that helps to really support a nation, especially in times of crisis. We just went through this 18-month period of this pandemic where we saw what happens when our healthcare infrastructure doesn't have what it needs. So this $3.5 trillion package is going to help that. And so this timing is perfect. We need to bring this message to Washington. We need to bring this message to your congressional officials when they're back home in the district and make sure our voices are heard. So who supplies America?
We supply America.
All right, so please help me to welcome our first speaker this afternoon, Assistant Director Jim Strong. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
I want to thank everyone for being here, our international union leadership, our distinguished guests, and most importantly, the Steelworker members in District 8. I also want to take this opportunity on behalf of Director Thompson and myself, thanking President Pete Morton of Local 831L and the Executive Board for putting this, hosting this event. In Virginia, Steelworker members see every day how important infrastructure investment is for our local economy. About 14% of our roads are in poor condition, which costs you about $500 extra a year. Our dams and bridges need repair, and our members who work in Danville see the same things across the state line in North Carolina. But our state infrastructure is not alone. Bridges, roads, water systems, the electric grid, broadband needs to be rebuilt throughout the entire country. If we continue underinvestment in the infrastructure, this will cost the U.S. more than $10 billion in GDP and over 3 million jobs over the next 15 years. Without massive national infrastructure, these costs will be passed off to families. But we can change this, and Steelworkers here can help. We make the tires right here that can help to use to transport materials that rebuild America. We'll join with steelworkers around the country who operate the electric grid to provide power for families, make steel, cement, coating for our roads and our highways, make the fiber optic cables needed to build and operate broadband in rural America, make pipes to rebuild our old and leaky water systems, and make other components for vehicles that drive across our highways. Steelworker members in Virginia, West Virginia, and Kentucky also support our social infrastructure by working in the healthcare industry to treat our family members at the time of need. For our union, though, the importance of infrastructure is more than just what we make that goes into it. It's about getting our products to our customers, being able to use the tires made here to transport goods made by steelworkers to their customers. For example, USW members at Buitoni Foods need to get their much sought after pasta, salsas, and Toll House cookies to dinner tables across the country. As you can see, we are ready to supply America. We need our elected officials at the federal, state, and local levels to act. We know that we have good friends in Congress who are working to ensure that our nations invest in our infrastructure and creating good union jobs, but they can't do it alone. Passing bipartisan legislation in the Senate is just the first step. Our infrastructure has been ignored too long. Congress working on passing infrastructure legislation through both the Senate and the House. We need to push them, including our Congressmen and Virginia Senators Warren and Kane, to finish the job to ensure that the massive investment is directed to communities and across the country. That infrastructure is built with U.S.-made steel, cement, pipe, lighting, fiber optics, and many more. Let's join together to take and tell our elected officials that our union is ready to supply America. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks. Thank you, Jim. All right, our next speaker is no stranger to anyone here. I am proud, very proud to serve on our union's executive board with him, and I'm more proud, really, to call him my big brother. So please welcome International Vice President Fred Redmon.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I want to say that it is an honor for me to be here today at Local 831L for this event. You know, 831L has a rich history since they received their first charter from the United Rubber Workers Union in 1967. And when that charter was issued, the 831L, it really changed the complexity of industrial manufacturing in this part of the South. And I've been privileged over the years to work with great leaders out of this local union. I'm so glad to see my brother Jeff Dixon, former president, here for this rally. I've worked with Danny Barber and others from this local, because this local understands the importance of unionism and have understood that since 1967, Pete. You know, in 1967, when this union came into existence and received their charter, they also participated in 1986 when a group of ship workers, okay, up in Newport News, Virginia, who was part of an independent union that wasn't serving them well, reached out and wanted a union. It was these leaders from 831L who came to Newport News and talked to the workers in what is called now 8888. And they participated, and I'm talking about participated heavily in terms of boots on the ground and manpower, helping us to organize Local 8888. That's the history of this local. And, you know, to be here is such an honor, and President Pete Morton, it's hard to believe that this is Pete's first term as president, because Pete has a steady hand, okay? He has proven leadership. And Pete, along with Greg Glass as vice president, and the entire executive board of this local union have stood tall and have shown why Local 831 is a local union that really gets it. You know, and Pete is moving forward on that rich history from this local in terms of promoting trade unionism here in the South. So I just want to thank you, Pete, and your entire executive board for your great leadership and everything that you do. And Roxanne, thank you for that kind introduction. Roxanne is the rock that kind of hold all of this together, Kim Miller and the entire team. And look, whether it's here in District 8 or across the country, our union has always supplied America with the goods that move, protect, and advance this great country of ours. From the steel, the asphalt, or the concrete, generations of union workers like yourselves have forged and poured the material for 4 million miles of public roads that crisscross around this country. Your tires have moved countless Americans across this country and literally across the globe. But for too long, as Roxanne stated, we've relied on aging infrastructure. The solid foundation that our parents and grandparents built needs to be maintained and upgraded for the next century for our kids and our grandkids. Excuse me. Sorry about that. And that's why we launched, as Rod said, We Supply America. Because union workers and our families, no doubt, will benefit from strong investment of an infrastructure bill. And this bill is the largest investment in infrastructure since Dwight Eisenhower, okay, invested, okay, in highways around this country. This is huge. And we do not need, and for those who say we do not need a strong infrastructure, let me just give you a couple of examples of why. Today, 6 billion gallons of drinking water in the United States is lost to leaking pipes. Every day, that is enough lost water to provide clean water to over 85% of the world. Think about that. Over 85% of the world could solve problems of clean drinking water if we just stop the waters that's leaking through these aged systems. The roads that we drive on are in dire shape, and it is estimated that nationally Americans lose about $1,000 in wasted time and gas from the backlog of road maintenance, money and time spent on our kids, our wives, anything else that we can be doing, but we spend a lot of time sitting in our cars, right? Sitting in our cars, okay, because we are driving on roads that in a lot of cases haven't been repaired for 60 and 70 years. So we need to supply America. This isn't just about our jobs, it is about the future of our country. And as a whole, China now spends over 3 times more. I'm going to say that again. China spends over 3 times more on their infrastructure than we do here in the United States. And China has already built enough high-speed rail to go from here to Las Vegas 6 times over. So overall, our country was recently ranked 13th globally in infrastructure quality, down from 5th in 2002. So brothers and sisters, look, a change needs to happen. This is about jobs, not just any jobs, but union jobs. Union jobs that built this country once before, and with a strong bill, we can build this country again. And right now, Democrats and Republicans in Congress are debating one of the largest federal investments that we have seen in generations. So look, when all is said and done, this bipartisan investment will mean $1 trillion on spending in our communities. This bill will be the single largest dedicated bridge investment since the construction of the interstate highway system. This bill ensures every American has access to high-speed internet with union-made fiber optic cables. This bill is the largest investment in passenger rail since the creation of Amtrak 50 years ago. This bill will replace aging school buses around the country. Now, we ain't gonna build them all to look like this, but it's gonna replace those aging school buses that we put our kids on every morning. Delivering new American-made buses around this country with dedicated funds for rural communities to make sure every community benefits from this piece of legislation. This bill will provide $17 billion in port infrastructure and $25 billion in airports to address repair and maintenance backlogs. This bill will provide $55 million of investment that represents the largest investment in clean drinking water in American history. So your union has been engaged at every level to make sure our members get this work. And talking to both Republicans and Democrats to show how we all benefit if they make this much needed investment. And our allies in Congress, they fought to make sure every dollar is covered by Buy America policy. And that's critical. That's critical. Because tens of thousands of more jobs can be created if we buy the supplies and the parts that's needed to rebuild the infrastructure with a Buy American provision. Today, waivers made 40 years ago allow the federal government to ignore U.S. suppliers for construction materials and other goods. This bill will force the government to redo those mistakes that they made in the past. Rebuilding our infrastructure, removing waivers that undermine our supply chains, upgrading our technology for the next generation. This is what this bill and our We Supply America effort is all about. These investments will grow the economy, and steelworker members and our employers are the ones who will benefit. Now look, this is not a sure thing though. We need to make sure that while the Senate passed the bill, the House of Representatives will need to take up this bill, and that is why we need your help. We need you to press your legislators to move this bill. This cannot be a Republican or a Democratic issue. But brothers and sisters, this is an American issue. So we need to work together, and we need to get this done. You know, always keep this in mind when people say, you know, we're doing all of this work, I'm tired, I don't have the energy to go any further. Always keep this in mind. Our children and our grandchildren is one day going to hold us accountable on how we responded at this moment. At this moment. Brothers and sisters, we have an opportunity to change the infrastructure of this country. And all we have to do is roll up our sleeves, go to work, make this happen, and put America back to work. Thank y'all very much.
Thanks so much, Fred. All right, I'm going to welcome our next speaker, the great leader of this local, Pete Morton. Pete?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
First of all, I'd like to welcome everyone that is not from this local. We do appreciate you coming, and we hope that our hospitality has met you in a great way. To our members who came and sacrificed to make it here, I want to thank you as well, and as well as Greg Gammon, Pamela Wright, Johnny Scott, and the rest of you that helped make this happen here. I am the president of Local 831, and we are honored to host this stop of the USW's We Supply America tour. Our union travels throughout the country to highlight all the different things that we as steelworkers make every day. America's infrastructure needs to be revitalized, and Southern Virginia is no exception to this. The 1,900 plus members of our local union, we manufacture medium radial and truck tires and aircraft tires. Our tires supply America by aiding in the transport of goods across the country by truck and in commercial, cargo, military, and private aircraft. We also make the tires for our school buses that carry our precious children to school each day. Investment in our nation's infrastructure by using goods made in the United States, like our tires, will help retain and create jobs just like the ones we work every day. We need well-maintained roads, airports, and ports to support our members' jobs. While the tires we make here in Danville are a vital component of our nation's infrastructure, the work is just as vital to our families and our community. The jobs supply our families with health care, our kids with educations, our local economy and communities with a reliable tax base to help fund the local schools and districts and the essential services. We need the support from our local, state, and federal leaders to invest in the funding tools and resources required to ensure that the success of my union siblings, our families, and jobs for tomorrow and for generations to come. This local understands that the benefits of infrastructure investment just isn't about roads and bridges, construction, or materials. This is an investment in the American worker. The brothers and sisters of Local 831 are calling for these needed investments to provide the American infrastructure of the future and to ensure that steelworker members across this great country continue to supply America. We thank you all for coming out today. We do have refreshments in our auditorium that are provided. Feel free to enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Who supplies America? We supply America. Who supplies America? We supply America. All right, just checking. All right, so what you also supply is power for our union. I think most of you know we have an office in DC, right? How many people know we have a Washington office? All right. The job of the Washington office is to advocate on behalf of all of you every single day on whatever issue. Our union is pretty powerful in DC. We are. We're pretty powerful. We're pretty respected. Do you know why? Why? Because we show up. Thank you, Pete. Brother, thank you. Because we show up. We show up for the issues that are important for your jobs. We show up for the issues that are important for the survival of your industries. We show up for issues that are critical for the safety of your communities. And we can't do the work out of our office in DC if we didn't have you all showing up and bringing your power behind us. Roy Hausman is back there. He's our legislative director, and Anna Fendley is back there. She's our director of regulatory and state policy. These are the two leaders of your Washington office. These are the two people who need you to continue to back them up with the power that you are giving them to go up on the Hill and have members open the doors for them because they have steelworkers standing behind them. So thank you for that power. And a program that really helps us to make sure that that power is seen and heard is Rapid Response. And so we're going to hear now from Sister Amber Miller, who's our director of our Rapid Response program, and Brother Chad Conley, who is the District 8 Rapid Response Coordinator, to talk about an action thing.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is actually a bit of an honor to be here because this local is got a rich history in rapid response. So it's nice to see everybody. I got some good friends that I came up through the movement here, went through leadership with Jeff. So it's good to see some familiar faces. So our union has a series of core issues that really drive what we do every day. So it's the things like healthcare, our retirement security, our ability to even collectively bargain, our health and safety on the job, job security, and domestic economic issues like infrastructure. Each one of these issues, they play out at the bargaining table every day and at our workplaces every day. And they're all shaped, whether we like it or not, for better or for worse, by government decisions, right? So that's kind of where rapid response comes in, because that's our chance to have a voice in how those decisions are made. So when we talk about investing in our nation's infrastructure, that's both an economic issue that impacts our workplaces, and it's a job security issue because it impacts our future. So today we're all here coming together to recognize that now's the time for our nation to rebuild. It's a time to invest in ourselves, to modernize our infrastructure, to create and sustain good paying jobs, unionized jobs, and to make sure those jobs are USW represented. So right now and all this week, our activists, our rapid response activists across the country are meeting with legislators, and they're leaving them these pledge cards. And they're leaving them those pledge cards as a reminder that this just isn't one moment. It's not just an infrastructure week. We're here to see this through, and we're going to remind them that they need to do that as well. They're also making phone calls. They're sending emails, and I know a lot of you out there are the ones doing that work. Thank you. They're writing letters jointly with their employers to show the administration and our elected officials that what we need right now, how we can contribute, and that this is the time for investment. And we really want to make sure that the administration and our elected officials know that we want to be on the top of that list. Steelworkers want to be on the top of that list when these projects start getting funded. So there really is a bigger picture here, and that work needs to continue. So please just, if you haven't yet, take a moment, fill one of these cards out. It's my understanding that the good folks here at this local have already done a lot of work around this, so thank you. We're going to continue to deliver these to the decision makers going forward until we get what we need. So we appreciate all your work, and we know that if we keep doing this work, we're going to get the bold action and the good jobs that we deserve. So thank you very much. I'm going to introduce you to Chad Conley. He's your District 8 Rapid Response Coordinator.
Thank you. I just love to come here because in the short time I've been the Rapid Response Coordinator in this district, I've forged a lot of close relationships here that have helped guide me on the program. But these postcards are a big thing now, and you all have done a lot of work on them, and I appreciate that. But they're not just for you. Take them home, get your family to do them, get your neighbors to do them. We'll take anybody filling one out. If you want to do a letter, which this local's already done one, but if there's other locals that want to do a letter with their company or on their own, please reach out to me. I'll be glad to help you write a letter or do whatever we need to do to make sure your voice is heard, because that's what I'm here for, is to help you have a voice and ensure that our leaders listen to it. Thank you.
Thanks, Chad. Thanks, Amber and Chad. Who's here from Local 8888? Welcome. Do y'all know what our folks at Local 8888 do? What do you do at 8888? Build ships. You just build ships? What do you build at 8888? You build the best aircraft carriers in the world. You build the best nuclear submarines in the world. That is what you do at 8888, all right? That's what we want y'all to hear. And so, taking that message here today is Sister Ashley Seabrook, who is the recording secretary from 8888. Thank you for joining us from Newport News, Sister. Come on up on stage.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ashley Seabrook, the recording secretary for Local 8888 in Newport News, Virginia. The over 10,000 U.S. members at Huntington Ingalls Newport News Shipbuilding have supplied America with the world's largest and most powerful Navy, to include the nuclear aircraft carriers and the submarines. These ships ensure the safety and security of our country and our naval force. The work we do at Huntington Ingalls to build these massive ships rely heavily on the ability for us to get the key components for them. Aircraft carriers are built and maintained with the parts that spread across 46 states and over 2,000 companies, including the steel plates made by our brothers and sisters in Cleveland Click in Pennsylvania, all the way to the coating we apply to prevent rust and corrosion. Reliable roads, bridges, and waterways are essential to these parts, getting to us in a timely manner to avoid work slowdowns and stoppages, so that we can build our ships on schedule. So for us at Local 8888, we are not only just helping to supply America with the powerful Navy ships, but the ships we make also support the jobs and thousands of other USW members at facilities across the country, making the components for our ships. We are proud to be connected with our union siblings in this way, and we are proud to supply America. Thank you.
Good job, Ashley. All right, so we're talking about moving policy. We're talking about getting these two bills through Congress, and we can't do that work alone. It doesn't only require both parties. Oftentimes it requires working in partnership with our allies. And one of those really key allies is the Alliance for American Manufacturing, and so we're really proud to have Brother Lou Delator join us today from AAM. He's not just with AAM, he's actually with our family. He's a former Steelworker member from West Virginia, so welcome, Lou.
Welcome, brothers and sisters. I'm glad to see that you all came out to participate in the We Supply America. You notice I didn't say come out and attend, I said participate. That means you need to sign your cards, and you may need to call your congressman. I'm not quite sure yet, but this bill is very important. The Steelworkers asked me a couple weeks ago if I could come out and talk a little bit about the Alliance for American Manufacturing. And folks, to talk a little bit about the Alliance for American Manufacturing, I'm going to have to go back into the early 2000s, and I'm going to have to talk about the United Steelworkers. Because in the early 2000s, folks, our government made some horrible trade policy. They made some terrible trade deals, and they let China join in the World Trade Organization, which has been a disaster. Soon after that, the executive board from the Steelworkers They had a vision. They had foresight. They understood that this is going to be a huge fight, a global fight, and a fight that they're just not going to be able to take on themselves. So due to their insight, they said, you know, we got to do something. We got to get allies. So they reached out. They reached out to the companies, the manufacturers, the leading manufacturers in their industry. And they sat down at a table and they said, you know what? We don't agree on everything and we never will. But what we do agree on is that China's cheating and our workers are losing their jobs. At this point, we're hemorrhaging jobs. And they said if we don't get together and put our resources together and form an alliance, we're going to lose, folks. We're going to lose. Not long after this, they start outsourcing our jobs. They're giving tax breaks for companies to move overseas. Now, the government did us wrong. So we had a fight. So in 2007, the Alliance for American Manufacturing was formed. It's a Washington-based company, and it's great. When we first started, we walk into the Congress offices with a company man, a union man, side to side, and they look at us and say, shouldn't you people be fighting somewhere? I said, no, we have something more important to do. We got to put this country back on track. We got to make up for these mistakes that you all made. So for the last 14 years, since 2007, the Alliance for American Manufacturers and the United Steelworkers and manufacturers, leading manufacturers, has been walking hand in hand, fighting the fight. For 14 years, we've been going out advocating and educating anybody that would listen. We started with our members. Then we went to our communities. Then we went to our community leaders. Then we went to our legislators. Then we went to the administration. And now we're so far as if you run for an office, we're coming to talk to you before you even have a chance to get elected. And that's what we've been doing, folks. And it leads us to now, this infrastructure bill. This infrastructure bill is huge to us. It's huge for many ways. Not only is it going to fix our roads and our bridges and modernize them, which needs done, we all know that, but it's also doing a couple other things. It's teaching our government a different way to spend our money. Before, they would go out and buy this cheap Chinese steel to build a bridge in America. Made no sense to nobody, and they screwed that all up. So what we're doing now, folks, is we're advocating. This bill right here is a game changer. This bill is a game changer because you know what? It's putting an infrastructure, it's putting a foundation under our businesses, which allow them to take their products to market safely and less inexpensively, but it's also changed our government. As Fred was saying, the government's buying different now. They're buying more products with more American content. That's what this bill's going to do. So between this bill, because we all know this level playing field's bullshit. We haven't been on a level playing field since the early 2000s. But this bill, with the way that the government's going to have to spend their money the right way, is going to level the playing field. And these tariffs that we have, we can't let them get rid of those tariffs, folks, because that's helping us level the playing field. So this bill is very important, not just for our infrastructure, which is huge, but for the way that America, our government, purchases products, manufactured goods with our taxpayers' money. So please, do your part. This bill has gone a long way. This package has gone a long way. But I've been doing this for a long time, and the last mile of this stretch is always the one that gets you. So if you can please do your share, do your part, because what do? Damn right we do, and we want to continue to supply America. So thank you for having me here. I greatly appreciate it. You people all should be commended for being here today. Thank you, and God bless all of you.
Thanks, Lou. Thank you also for stealing my line. So now I got to do it. Who supplies America? We supply America. Who supplies America? We supply America. That's how you do it, brother. Take notes. All right. So listen, this is really about telling your story. What we are really trying to do, what our union is trying to do with this campaign, is tell our story. When people think about our union, what industry do they think about? Steel. It's our name. They don't know the legion of industries that we're in. They don't know the legion of sectors that we are in that provide key services to this country. We got to tell them what? We have to educate them about what it is that we do. We do a really terrible job sometimes of telling our story. This ends now with this campaign. This, I've been calling this We Supply America our battle cry. We don't want Congress to only think about the people who are going to be building the bridges and the roads. We want them to think about every single component that is going to go into these structures. And when they think about those components, I want them to think about us. We want the first name that's at the front of their minds is the Steelworkers. That's why we're doing this. We're telling your stories. It's not just about your jobs, it's about your communities too. Look, Fred is here, but Fred is also working his way up the coast of the United States right now with this huge storm. That storm is hitting a whole bunch of communities as it goes. Some of those communities, their infrastructure systems are failing them. Those communities are not safe because this government has not done its part to supply communities with what they need. So when you all are watching cable news or local news and they're talking about this infrastructure package moving through Congress, we want you all to hear them talking about your jobs. We want you to understand that when they're talking about building this stuff up, they're talking about building this stuff up with the things that you make every single day. We're trying to tell our story with our battle cry. The second thing we're trying to do is connect the dots. Do you know what this administration did for the first time ever? No other administration has ever done it. They created an office at the White House called the Made in America office. Never existed before. That office, their job is to look across all of the ways the government spends its money to buy things. Who makes things? We do. Because why? We supply America. So what things do we want them to buy? America. Whose things, though? Our things. So this campaign is also about connecting those dots. When Chad talked about those letters, those labor management letters that we want you all to draft, we're sending those letters to the White House. And that Made in America office is getting those letters to help them connect the dots and see where across this great country steelworkers are making the things that supply America. This is our commercial for our union. If we could ever do one, this is our commercial. And we can't do it without you. So as Brother Pete said, we show up. That's when we're powerful, when we show up. We're showing up right now. We're showing up with this tour. We're showing up with this overall campaign. We're showing up with this week of action. We are building power for our union because we supply America. And we want the administration to know what? We supply America. We want Congress to know what? We supply America. And we want you all to know what? We supply America. All right, y'all. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming out today. Have a good afternoon.